So why is belly fat changing for you? Cortisol is king, baby. This is when the long nights happen, the poor eating, the poor sleeping, the deadlines, right? In college, the stress of getting a career, maybe moving, the stress of new relationships, and all of those things combined in your 20s and 30s can lead to chronically high cortisol. And cortisol stores fat at your belly. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, if you don't want to miss any content that's being dropped, make sure you hit that notification bell as well. I also want to know who are the people you want to hear from on this show and what topics would you like me to continue to cover. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here today. Today we're talking about, good old belly fat, since you haven't heard about it in, 2 seconds. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to talk about my approach to this and the approach for anyone, 20, 30, 40 and beyond, because yes, our bodies respond differently to belly fat and different types of belly fat occur at different ages. So if you want to solely listen to that part of this podcast, check out the show notes below because I'm going to start bantering about my life. I'm going to tell you guys, I feel boring. I feel boring. I went to a pool party. You guys are like 2 pool parties in 1 month? Yes. This is for the gal that helps me with my surplus. She does a pool party every year. We didn't go last year, so we decided to go this year. And there was a lot of people there. I'm like, who's coming to Arizona in June, end of June at that? And the whole entire hotel was sold out. The entire pool party was crazy. And I think I stayed for 3 hours and solely to just tan. The soberish part of me really struggles in those settings. It's crazy. And could I have had a drink or two? Sure. But I'm really saving that for events. Like I'm going to be in San Diego in 3 weeks. So not 4th of July weekend, the weekend after that. So you might be hearing, I don't know when this is going to be. What's the word I'm looking for? There's the brain fog. Accept it. I don't know when this is going to be published. There it is. See, radical acceptance. Anywho, I feel boring. And that's so not me. I'm super fun and I like to have fun and I like to talk to people and engage. And I just realized, man, I was really a little bit more loose when I was drinking. So that's my reality. I just posted the alcohol and how it affects women at midlife. So the non-alcohol side of you affects you too. So there is that. If you've struggled with that, please tell me what you did and give me some feedback on what I can do to help that. In regards to my training right now, I followed this gal. I forget her Instagram handle. But the funny thing is she does a lot of postpartum pelvic floor. And I'm watching her work out and she does a lot of rotational, cross body, symmetrical types of movements. And I ran MAP Symmetry, which for those of you who don't know what MAPS is, they're mind pump programs. And I ran that a couple of summers ago and I really loved it. And then I ended up busting my heel and ended up in a walking boot. However, I really enjoyed the unilateral work. So one-sided work, the split stance, the lunges, the one arm, the single leg, all of that. So what I did was I created a program for myself that included the unilateral work as well as the rotational work. And it's kicking my butt. It is not the strong heavies like I normally pull. It is a lot of balance. It's a lot of awareness because I'm doing the rotations, but obviously I don't want to do too much because I don't want to hurt myself. So really being aware of where my core is, where my pelvic floor is, where my back is, how I'm engaged. It's tough. It's tough. I'm sitting here now. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel that. And today I did a little bit of hamstring and glute work, shoulder work. I'm really focusing in on the body parts that I want to see develop more. So I would love the glute ham connection to be more defined. And I want to continue to just have arms that, in this tank top, if you're watching on YouTube, just being able to see those delts, being able to see the bicep. Look at that baby bicep, right? So I've been focusing on that. It's fun. And for you, change it up sometimes. I know I do this for my clients where some of them they just like traditional workouts and we do what they want, but we are still changing things. We're going from bilateral, so both feet on the ground, to unilateral, so one foot on the ground, right? And we're doing balance work, but I love to like just challenge my body because it's just the novelty of doing something different. That different stimulus will show up, right? And you'll learn that, oh, my body actually likes this work better. When I ran Map Symmetry, I honestly saw such an amazing response in my body. And honestly, that program to me felt a bit boring. Speaking of boring, I was like, how is this really gonna do much difference? Like, it's so different than how I train. Oh, it did. The first 2 weeks is just TRX work, but believe me, I saw a change. So that is your reminder. If you haven't already, change up your program. That doesn't mean change it every day or every week. I'm going to run this program for 6 to 8 weeks, the same exact 4 workouts that I do each week. Wednesdays is mobility and pelvic floor. Saturdays, Sundays is a longer walk with the doggos. So change it up, you guys. It's really important for your progress, for progressive overload, for things like power, performance, balance, stability, all of that. So this is your reminder to change it up. All right. Speaking of exercise, today we are talking about belly fat. And we're not just talking about belly fat in regards to, doing more crunches and having the flat abs. We're talking belly fat in the what the hell is happening to my body type of belly fat. And we're not just talking about my 40 plus ladies like myself. We're talking about my 20-year-olds, my 30-year-olds, and what to do, why it's happening. And we're breaking it down by decade and understanding the bodily shifts, understanding the mental health shifts, and understanding what to do with it without involving toxic diets or excessive cardio. So the sneaky start to belly weight starts in our 20s and 30s. I would even say that it starts way younger because I've seen children grow up. Children have more belly fat on their bellies as children and grow up to really struggle with that throughout their lives. And I won't even say I've seen it myself. My clients have talked about that, where their parents' eating struggles are projected onto them. So they have this like processed foods, they're eating out, they're going through the drive-through, and then the child gains weight. The parents' own frustrations with their own weight issues then are projected on the child. The child is put into a diet very early, and this binge restricting starts to happen very early age. And this is exactly why I created this program, because of that shit. However, that's the nature part of it. The nurture part of it, excuse me. The nature part, I want to explain. There are 3 different types of bodies. So you have your ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. So your ectomorph style body is very slender, but it can still be skinny fat. Okay. They have smaller chests. They have like smaller butts. They have no ass. They have long limbs, thin bones, and smaller joints. And they gain both weight and muscle with a lot of struggle, and they lose muscle easily. So that is an ectomorph. An endomorph is your kind of softer, rounder body. I think like apple style body or pear-shaped body, if you will. They have short and stocky limbs. They are big boned, as we would say. They're skinny jeans that fit tight in the hips and the glutes. They have difficulty losing fat, and they gain fat and muscle at an average rate, but lose muscle definition even faster. And then you have your mesomorph. I would be considered a mesomorph. It's an athletic body, both gains muscle and fat easily and can lose both easily. They have defined muscles. They have hard rectangular shapes for men or hourglass shapes for women. Their fitted jeans are snug around the glutes, but not too tight. Their shoulders are slightly wider than their hips. They gain strength easily and they usually have ideal posture. So, just to give you some ideas. So, famous ectomorphs, you've got like Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, and I was even think like Nicole Kidman, right? For your endomorph, think like Vin Diesel or like Jack Black, right? Maybe even Adele might be an endomorph. For your ectomorph, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Kornikova. Gosh, who else? You guys are probably screaming at me. This person. Obviously, a lot of football players. The girl who's coming to my mind is that not rugby, the one girl that was like in the Olympics that everyone was talking about, who I asked to come on this podcast, but she didn't. Me, I am a mesomorph. So that is the nature side of things. So for some people, they're naturally just more round in their bellies. Okay. Now, for them, it's going to be a little bit harder to see like abs, but that doesn't mean we can't reduce belly fat. So in your 20s and 30s, again, is a sneaky start. You're not menopausal, obviously. So why is belly fat changing for you? Cortisol is king, baby. This is when the long nights happen, the poor eating, the poor sleeping, the deadlines, right? In college, the stress of getting a career, maybe moving, the stress of new relationships. And all of those things combined in your 20s and 30s can lead to chronically high cortisol, and cortisol stores fat at your belly. Okay. So I have a few really amazing younger clients, and both of these two I'm thinking of, there's been more than that, have really demanding jobs. They're traveling all the time. They have crazy social schedules. And if you look at their bodies, their arms are thin, their legs are thin, and then they have the belly fat or had the belly fat. And it was this combination of I already have this stressful job. I haven't learned how to manage this stress. So I go out with my friends, I eat, drink, and be merry. And then my body is just starting to change over time. So that is number one. Cortisol is king. The other thing we want to talk about is like birth control, right? Birth control can have a huge effect on our bodies. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to gain weight, but we have to remember that that is synthetic hormones that we're putting in our bodies. And oftentimes, unfortunately, we're doing that because of a bigger issue, right? So PCOS, endometriosis. For me, it was I had these fibroids and was bleeding all the time when really the fibroids were the issue, but I was put on an IUD in hopes that that would fix it. It didn't. It just got 10 times worse. So this is usually when we start to incorporate birth control in some fashion, and that ultimately can affect our body fat, but also we also have really high blood sugar spikes and swings because again, this is the time where we don't think about our self-care. We just think, "Oh, I'll rest when I die, like I'll do that later." Like listen, y'all, who I'm talking to is me at your age. I thought I was invincible. I would go to school. So when I was in graduate school, I was in my late 20s. I would go, well, no, I'll just talk about college. I would go to school and I don't remember the exact schedule. I think it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, Monday through Thursday, I had dance practice at night. Thursday, I would have my car packed, get ready, go to the bar, host karaoke, and do Shot Girl. Then I would stay at a friend's house because the bar where I worked at was about 45 minutes from my school, but it was the bar that I had worked at forever. And like, I made a lot of money. So I continued to work there, would stay at my friends and party for 4 days, right? Rarely sleep, be working shifts in between there, drink whatever, eat really food from the bar, and then come back to school, wash, rinse, and repeat. Then in graduate school, I also worked at that bar still. It really helped me throughout my life. Thank you, Santisi Brothers. Went to graduate school Tuesday, Thursday, but my graduate school was an accelerated master's program. So it was 18 months, I believe. So it was about a year and a half of schooling, and it was so advanced. I mean, we had so much shit to do. I was in a relationship that was completely toxic. That's when I was drinking very heavily because I was so stressed out, and my body was just like, right? But I thought I was invincible. I thought I could go without the sleep. I could drink whatever. I was invincible. Nothing was going to phase me. Now, I will tell you something about myself is I don't gain a lot of weight in my belly. You know what drives my clients absolutely crazy is they're eating clean and doing all the workouts, but they don't see the weight budge. Their sleep is all over the place. Their hormones are through the roof, and they feel like they're going crazy.
Yeah, it's frustrating because 9 out of 10 times it's something hormone related that no one's looking at. It's perimenopause, menopause. Our biology internally has shifted, but no one's changing the strategy as far as approach.
What if perimenopause support included like therapeutic guidance, nutrition, exercise, and hormonal support all in one place?
Seriously, it would be great if you didn't have to track down like 10 different experts just to feel like yourself again.
That's why I created the Mindset of Menopause and have partnered with Dr. Jordan Trapp to create a comprehensive plan to your hormonal health.
Together, we are making medical insight meet emotional strategy. So your symptoms make sense, your plan actually works, and your power comes back online.
This isn't just support. This is your comeback season.
Click below for more information.
However, if I'm starting to see that, because usually I gain more weight around my hips and thighs, if I'm starting to see that, shit's gone wrong, right? For me. Now, for other people, that's the first place that they gain it. And I see this all the time. So these blood sugar swings are because we're not eating for a certain amount of time. We eat this big meal or we're drinking a bunch, which can cause a whole slew of issues in our bodies. We're stressed out. We're numbing the pain through alcohol, through whatever. And we're just not taking care of ourselves. So those blood sugar spikes can thus over time affect insulin sensitivity. And again, that's when we're going to see more storage of belly fat. And then gut health, inflammation, both are activated by alcohol. Your gut, again, is your second brain. And if it's inflamed, if it's bloated, if it's imbalanced, your belly will reflect that. And alcohol is a wonderful way to create gut issues. So just think about that. Like we assume, and I agree, obviously, as you get older, the more stressors you have. The thing about stress in your younger years is your body is it's true. It's easier to manage because we have high levels of estrogen and progesterone and things that calm us down. However, if we don't get in front of this now, it's going to be a fucking wild ride for you when you get into your 40s, 50s, and beyond. So what do we do? Let's talk about that. Fiber, 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 fiber. Everyone listening, everyone over 40, when's the first time you heard about fiber? I know for me, it was like 35. I didn't think fiber. All I knew Metamucil was like this thing that people, those magazines or the commercials where they were like, it's like, that looks disgusting. When they're like, remember the commercial where they had it in the little glass of water and they're like, oh, look, it's clear. Fiber. 25 plus grams of fiber per day from real food, right? This supports your gut health. This keeps your blood sugar stable. Adding fiber now, you're going to feel better. You're going to de-bloat. You're going to have nice bowel movements. Add fiber. Cut back on the drinking, okay? Audit that alcohol. I get it. You want to be fun. You want to be like your other friends. However, do you want to feel better, right? Do you want to look better? There's that aspect of it, of feeling good and really creating a foundation so you can maintain that throughout your life. So audit your alcohol, a few drinks a week, right? Not a few drinks a day, because that will tank your sleep. That will, again, spike your cortisol and mess with your fat storage. You can even try this. I dare you. Try a 2-week break from alcohol and just see the difference in your stomach. Just see the difference in your stomach. We want to balance We want to get off this like cardio train. Now, I'm loving where girls are in their 20s right now because I see you. I see all of you influencers who are doing the strength training workouts. I also see all of you who are like, go in the stair stepper for 45 minutes. Stupid. Do the strength training workouts. Yes, get cardio in, but walking, hot girl walks are great. We love those for you. We want to balance that out, right? So 2 to 3 weeks of strength training, zone two walks, light cardio, but skip those high intensity marathons. Just skip them. I have friends who've literally ran marathons and their belly fat increased and they were in their 20s. So just saying. Okay. And really start cutting back on the processed foods. I know it's convenient. You probably haven't figured out how to cook or you know how to cook, but you haven't figured out how to incorporate that into your new schedule and your new life. I was thankful enough to have lived on my own. After I moved back from San Diego, I lived on my own for the first time without roommates, and that's when I learned how to cook because I could burn something and nobody would know. It was great. I didn't have to learn how to cook because my parents had a restaurant. So, and my mom cooked. So there's that. And she cooked me whatever I wanted because I'm a spoiled brat. Just kidding. Because she was trying to find the way to my heart. So that is for my 20 to 30-year-old girlies. Reduce the processed food, audit the alcohol, strength train, zone two cardio, walking, and fiber. Fiber. Oh, and hydrate. Drink a fucking bottle of water. It's not going to hurt you. It's so funny with my younger girlies. They're like, God, why am I so hot? Why is it so hard to drink so much water? But I can have 7 margaritas in one sitting. Get like the Mio that tastes like margaritas, or even the Element Tea. Don't drink it in every water, but split it up. You could take one packet and split it up throughout the day. That tastes like a margarita. Okay? All right. 40-year-old girlies and beyond. This is where hormones flip the script. Now, beautiful thing is there's not a lot of difference in the way we're going to approach this, but I want to just explain that in the land of perimenopause and menopause, things start to shift again. So if we have not created the foundation in our 20s and 30s, now we have the belly fat because of the processed foods, the alcohol, the things. And now we go into perimenopause and that transition, and now estrogen starts to drop and that starts to become thicker. We start to feel worse and the belly fat gets even more stubborn. By the way, did you hear me say in my 20 and 30-year-old girlies to do all these ab workouts? No. Why? Because your compound movements in strength training are going to work your core harder than your dynamic, core workouts. So I will talk about a few things you can do about that. However, let's get back to the 40-year-old girls. Why belly fat gets more stubborn. As estrogen drops, our fat redistributes to our middle. So think about your fat being a protector, right, around your reproductive organs. And because those reproductive organs are, as I say, retiring, people always say your ovaries are failing. They're not failing. They're done working. They've done their job every month for 30 years, 35 years. They're retiring. Ovaries on retirement. We should make sure my ovaries are in retirement. Throw them a party. So anyways, our ovaries are retiring. And so this kind of shift comes up around our organs, right? And this visceral fat is, you can see it. It's aesthetic. We can see it, but it's also inflammatory, as I said, and it's tied to the risk of disease. Now, visceral fat, I had mentioned this. Was it in a podcast? It might have been in one of the videos I did, but visceral fat can increase up to 15 to 20% in the menopause transition, whereas in our 20s and 30s, it could be anywhere from 5 to 8%. That's a really important thing to know. Where is my visceral fat? You can do an in-body scan. You could do a DEXA scan. Do it early. Do it as often as you can. Not as often, but like once a quarter is fine, even twice a year. So you can make sure we're keeping track of that. Okay. So this visceral fat, because estrogen is an inflammatory hormone, once it's starting to decline, we see more of these inflammatory markers increase, visceral fat being one of them. The more visceral fat we have, the higher our inflammation. So keep that in mind. Okay. One way to understand how high our visceral fat is just your waist to hip ratio. you basically divide your waist to your hips. So your measurement for your waist, your measurement for your hips, and anything above a point 0.8 is considered harmful, right? Or high. Anything above, I believe it's 0.85 is more likely in alignment with chronic disease. So that's something you can do. The other thing we notice is like in our 40s, the old tricks don't work anymore. So the cardio, the calorie deficits, doesn't budge the scale, doesn't budge the measurements. And again, as I mentioned, your stress tolerance is much lower. If you haven't been strength training, your mass, muscle mass is much lower. And both of those things can cause your metabolic rate to change, right? Because if we're losing muscle, we have more cortisol in our bodies. It's really a recipe for a disaster, right? And this can cause us to be exhausted, to obviously be inflamed, to feel like we're in survival mode, which tells our body to hold on and store instead of shred. It's very important because when our bodies feel like they're in a stressed state, why would they get rid of resources like energy? Our fat is energy, so it'll store it away. It's not going to shed it when you're in such a stressed state. And a perimenopause transition alone feels like a stress on the body because it's such a differing thing, even though it is actually what our bodies should be doing. So, what to do? Our non negotiables here are strength training, right? Resistance training 2 to 4 times a week builds that muscle, it'll improve that insulin resistance, and it directly combats visceral fat. Hear me out. Do the strength training. Again, compound movements, your squats, your deadlifts, your rows, your overhead press, your chest press. Those are compound movements. Focus on lifting heavy. Have a plan in the gym. Peloton is not a plan. Have a plan where you can focus on progressive overload. You can write down your reps, your sets, your weights. That plan should last you anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks with the same exact moves. Some plans, if you buy them, will have differing reps and sets throughout the 8 to 12 weeks. So, like when I'm having someone run a more like powerlifting plan, we will have different like reps and set ranges. But others, we just stick with the same rep sets and weights. And what the differing changes are how strong we're getting. So we're seeing progress in doing more reps, doing a higher weight, things like that. So strength train 2 to 4 days a week. And of course, we want to prioritize protein and fiber. So I would aim for like 30 grams of protein per meal, 25 grams of fiber per day, as we've already talked about. Again, fiber is going to help with building muscle. The more muscle we have, the more we can store things like glucose, right? We can store glucose in our muscle rather than our fat. We can regulate our blood sugar just by having more protein throughout the day. And obviously, get stronger, which is important. Fiber, again, is going to help with deep bloating. It's going to help with bowel movements. It's going to help with our gut microbiome. So 25 grams of fiber. This is where we want to regulate our cortisol like it's our motherfucking job. Okay. We want to regulate our bodies. I know going through this, your body feels so off, and I understand. That is why having a mental health and a physical health plan is so important. This is why I created the mindset of menopause, because we need to recognize the physical aspects of what is going on, recognize the stories we're creating about that. Do those stories serve our symptoms or do they make them worse? Because most of the time, we are just in this very negative space, and that will make our symptoms worse, which then makes our symptoms worse and causes this kind of snowball effect, right? So regulate your stress, your cortisol like it's your job. This is where your breath work comes in, journaling, even just reading something. I told you guys before I read 101 Essays to Change Your Way of Thinking, I believe it's called. I love that book because it's anytime I read it, it applies to me in some fashion. And it creates cognitive dissonance because again, it changes the way you're thinking. So it's just so off from what we see like on social media. The social media is an algorithm. So if we're in this negative headspace, it's going to show us and confirm our negative headspace. So sleep hygiene is really important. A part of the mindset of menopause is learning cognitive behavioral skills to even help with insomnia, because there has been research to show that CBT, which is a therapeutic style, I am adapting this a therapy style to skills because we're in a coaching setting, does help with insomnia and being able to find what works for you now, because what works for you now may not have worked in your 20s and 30s in regards to calming your body down. For me, smelling my dogs and putting my face all up in them is so comforting. I fucking love those dogs, man. The deep inhale, long exhale, sometimes just laying on the ground and breathing. I do that after my workouts just to calm my body down. Journaling is great. I love journaling. I love scribbling. I love writing things and tearing them up. All great things. Then we want to, of course, you've got to ditch the extremes at this point. We know they're not working. They're honestly only making things worse. You are creating more stress on your body. You're creating more stress in your mind, which then creates that inner critic loop of you're a piece of shit. You look so disgusting. So then what do? You want to go restrictive. You want to go punishing. And that is exactly what's keeping you here. So that is what we want to do. Now, one thing that's important for both all age groups, so we can see some overlap, but as I mentioned, the strength training is going to help to increase core strength, right? And your abdominal muscles are like any other muscle. They should never be overworked. They should never involve junk volume. But what do we see? The Pilates 100 pumps. Do eight. Do eight with stability and precision without activating your hip flexors. And that's going to feel better than the 100. Your eight will, because you're doing it correctly. What I do love are things that are going to activate our deep core and lower deep core. Because a lot of women, you'll see them activate their top muscle, their what they call them upper ab grippers. And if we're activating at the top, then it's got to push down, which is going to affect our pelvic floor, but also can give us this kind of like belly pooch at the bottom. So I love diaphragmatic breathing, pelvic tilts. 90-90 is not the one where you're sitting with your knees bent. You're laying on your back with your feet up against something, right? And you might have a block between your knees and like hip like glute bridging with that block in between your knees and squeezing that block. I love those. They're tough. Bird dogs or dead bugs are really great. What else? I just put a whole program together for one of my pregnant girlies. Glute bridges, of course. So there are those types of workouts are really helpful. But even then, we're doing 8 to 10 reps, maybe 3 sets. We're not doing 100 crunches. We're not doing no. As I mentioned, my training is more rotational. So I'm doing like wood chops with the cables, wood chops with kettlebells. I do like some lunging with rotation in my new program. I'm trying to remember all the things I do, but that alone is activating my core like crazy, like crazy, crazy. So those are some of the more specific core workouts we can do. That breathing and tilting is really important because, especially like I said, if you're an upper ab gripper, we want to be able to activate the entire transverse abdominis, which is your deep core muscles, rather than just those top two. So that is important. So belly fat, again, everyone talks about it. Again, you're probably going to hear this word be said maybe 10 more times today, but you're not bad because you have it. It's more it's kind of like your body telling you the story about how you've been living. Sorry. We just talked about radical acceptance. That's what it is. It mirrors your metabolism, your stress, and your stage of life. So we just want to help with, in our 20s and 30s, we want to prevent it from getting further. We want to help regulate. We want to create a foundation around these skills, these self-care skills, these health, longevity skills. And in our 40s and beyond, we want to restore, right? We want to restore our bodies. We want to feel stronger. We want to have more independence. Having a strong core keeps you balanced. It keeps you from falling. It helps you in so many ways. So no matter where you're at, this is beyond aesthetics. Aesthetics is nice, but as we've talked about today, being able to be balanced in your body. A balanced body is a body with less belly fat. And that doesn't mean none. That doesn't mean you have a six pack, but it is. It's going to be less inflamed. It's going to not carry as much fat on it in general. And so that's really important. Again, I didn't say you're going to be this lean queen. It's just going to carry less. Less. Could be 1% less. So that's it. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, please share this with anyone who would be interested in this podcast. It doesn't have to be this episode. Share your favorite episode. Also, I would love a short 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. My last review is from December. It's June. And I know y'all are listening out there. And I have a lot of Spotify's, which are just where you hit the button and it just says 5 stars. And I think all of ours are 5 stars there. On Apple Podcasts, you can write a little something like, this is a great podcast. Christina's amazing. I love how she focuses on mindset and physical aspects of things. Done. I just wrote it for you. So I would love that. If you're interested, everything we're talking about here is in the mindset of menopause for my 40 plus girlies or 35 plus girlies. So check out the show notes below for that. And just like every single episode, I want to leave you with this, reminding you what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. Bye-bye.